The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Illya Friedman.
Hey, Ben. Guess what?
What?
It is our 250th episode of this podcast.
250 episodes of this thing?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So does that mean that we're both rich from this?
I think we're actually poorer. We are poorer having done it, at least financially. I think we might be rich, in our souls.
I'm rich in my heart.
Rich from, yes, exactly. And we've talked to so many wonderful, fun, terrific people.
Heroes, everyone.
Yeah, including this episode. Who are we talking to?
We are talking to, this is going way back. This is actually really appropriate for the 250th episode. We're talking to Abe Martinez, who was on our 4th episode ever in 2014.
Yeah. A friend of the show, a friend of mine, my former loader, great client of Hot Rod Cameras. I hear from him for probably every one of his productions, it seems like. I'm really happy to have him back. He's such a delight to talk to. And boy, talk about career trajectory. This guy's career is like a rocket, and he's so interesting, and he's got such a great heart. And I love talking to the guy. I'm so excited that we're about to get into this interview. But before that, what are we talking about for Close Focus today? What's going on, Ben?
Well, I feel like we've touched on this topic a little bit, but I think it's worth kind of keeping a watchful eye on it. And that is the Discovery, HBO, Warner merger, the mega merger, and what it's doing to HBO Max specifically. It came out this week that HBO Max, it's not just that they're canceling shows, they're removing them from the service, and not like old shows or niche shows, but like one of them is Westworld, which was sort of...
Which is on the homepage of HBO Max for anyone for the last couple of months. They were, promoting the heck out of that thing.
Yeah.
And so to cancel it and also remove it, that just makes me think they must want to sell it off to another streaming service or something to make some money. I think they want to.
Maybe. Look, cancel
the
whatever
Disney Vault. I don't know what it is.
It's the world of TV. So if it's not getting the views that it needs to get, I understand canceling it because it's not a cheap show to make and it's got a pretty highfalutin and I'm assuming outrageously expensive cast. But to remove it entirely from the service, to me, Westworld is like HBO branding all over it. It's such an HBO series, and yeah, sure, you could stick it on Netflix or something, but holy crap! To me, that was a big move. And then also the Joss Whedon series, The Nevers, which was also kind of a surprise to me that they would take The Nevers down. Again, cancel it if it's not doing what you need it to do. I get that, but the show literally came out last year. They're not taking 6 Feet Under, although that would be equally shocking to me if they took 6 Feet Under down. But, 6 Feet Under has been off the air since 2010. They're not taking something like that down. They're taking something they just were trying to get us to watch a minute ago.
Supposedly, according to Variety, The Nevers actually already had, it was only halfway through season 1, and they had another batch of episodes that are supposedly ready to air, and those will now never be aired. The whole thing's being scrapped. So yeah, that's
what a huge bummer. Think of all the work that all those people put into that. I feel stick it somewhere else.
I think it's going to go on to another platform. That's what it sounds like, but it's not going to be on HBO. So and really, Westworld, that was canceled just last month in November. And the last season only started airing in August. So it was a very short run. So August basically to November, and now gone in December, which is crazy.
And again, not canceled, not available. It's IP that they paid for. It's production that they paid for, that they produced, that they made, scored, color corrected, cast, wrote, all that stuff. And it's just being disappeared basically from the platform. And this to me is one of the problems with streaming.
Well, this is the second time they've done this too. We talked about before. I was watching a series called Close Enough, which got axed. I never got to finish it. They pulled it from the service. I had started to watch another one called Infinity Train. These are both animated. I assume that they said they were going to spin off Sesame Street and stuff. Maybe they think that Sesame Street and animation is all going to go on some other new service they can get more money from people. I predict, and I could be wrong, but they want to keep getting more money for people. And the way that they are going to do that is possibly by having multiple apps. Maybe it's multiple HBOs, maybe it's multiple services, so that you're paying $5 for this one, $7 for that one, $3 for that one. And then they get to get more money out of all of their viewers.
People can't see the weariness on my face right now. It's just like, oh God.
Another one, I don't know if you saw Minx, which is the 70s set dramedy that was very similar to sort of like the Apple TV Plus series Physical, and that it was a period piece and it had, interesting themes. But yeah, that was renewed for season 2, canceled by HBO Max. So I guess we will never see that. So that's
and I think it bears repeating that, like in the last 10 years or so, we've lost our affinity for physical media, and they're still out there. You can still get most stuff on Blu-ray if you want it, but it's far less used. It's something, I still have my DVD collection because I can't bring myself to part with it. But when you don't live in a world of physical media and you're paying for these services and you assume something like Westworld is just going to be there because HBO created it and they have their own app, and why wouldn't they just put the thing that they made on the thing? It might have to do with how much they're paying in residuals just to hold on to it. Who knows?
Think about it. It's like the music industry. You don't hear about Spotify saying, well, you know what? We've changed our mind. No more Beatles. Or, no more Rolling Stones.
Well, I will say, on Apple Music, there's a Fishbone album that I liked a lot. And one day I went to play it and it just wasn't on the service anymore. And then sometime later it came back on. But the thing is that on all of these streaming services, be it, HBO Max or Netflix or Shudder, whatever you're watching, there's a constant renewal of licenses going on with everything. And so whatever you love and you assume you're paying for, and to me what's shocking about this is that the service itself created to get you to watch the service in the first place, it could just go away tomorrow.
Also, these are I understand when it's a different studio. I understand when they don't own that intellectual property, but these are Warner Brothers properties. These are HBO properties. These are flagship made for that network. Probably a certain number of people out there who subscribed to that service to watch those shows. And now those shows are gone. This is the wild west of streaming, and we're in it now.
Yeah, I'm sure you can buy these shows all on Blu-ray. Anyway, let's get to our interview with Abe Martinez.
The Cinematography Podcast Interview.
Joining us now is Abe Martinez, and by us, I mean Ben's here too. So
hello. Hey, I'm sitting in the same room. It's so weird.
So Ben, I, and Abe, we did this all way back in 2014 together. Abe was our 4th interview, and now you're back. You're back to let us know what's happened these 7 years or so. It's been since 8 years since we did this.
I feel like the landscape has changed so much in the business and even here, and to be here back with you guys, it's been a wild ride. So thanks for having me back.
Well, it's great to catch up with you. Yeah. I mean, I feel like you weren't at the very, very beginning of your career, but you were doing really interesting stuff, going to foreign countries and working in communities that didn't have filmmaking and stuff like that. And since the last time, I feel like every time I turn on the TV and I see the cinematographer credit, there you are.
Yeah, it's been definitely a transition, breaking away from being a camera assistant and then transitioning to operator and ultimately DP. But when I saw you guys last time, I was in and out of airplanes all the time. I was flying to different countries, and the landscape was still, even back in 2014, I had just finished my project in Kenya. So I was very much still living in a suitcase. I sold my house, moved away, and in some ways I'm still in the suitcase from when I almost last saw you. Definitely since 2018 when I got my first.
You're constantly working.
Yeah, I just stay packed, and it turns out that now I have a 7x7 shipping pod that stays floating in the mid-zone where I work in Chicago. I did a show in Chicago, really? Dallas, New Orleans. So that's where all my stuff is in this pod. And
is that gear, or is that just your personal, your record collection?
Well, I travel with my wife and kids. So it is my wife's. You
keep your wife
painting.
In the pod? I'm calling the cops.
Yeah, it's her painting studio, mobile painting studio. She's a painter.
What?
And my children have instruments and music instruments, so everything just kept building because I kept going show to show to show. And now I have a shipping pod that follows me around, and I have also camera cases, but my camera cases don't go in there. That thankfully Panavision takes care of me and ships it job to job. But yeah, I'm still nomadic. I haven't really settled down. It's part of what I love about the business is you never know what genre you're going to shoot. You never know where you go next. And I just always kind of stayed ready. Even when there was times, if I was in LA and when I last saw you, I'd, in my head, just have a bag ready to go, because you just never know. You get a phone. I got a phone call in your parking lot, ready to go to Toronto, and I'm just like, whoa, wait a minute, this is too fast. I just barely got home.
Call the shipping pod.
Yeah, I just finished 11 months straight. Yeah, call the shipping pod, exactly.
I want to share a memory here about Abe and I, not all the way back to the early days when you'd load film for me, but really going back to, I'm going to say maybe the last just like 5 years. Quite often, if I feel like I see you coming and going. Like I see you've landed in Los Angeles, you're here for 3 days, you're taking some meetings, and then you're immediately to go to Atlanta, or you're going to go to Chicago, or you're going to go to something else. And it's usually like, hey, Illya, great to see you. I need this black magic part, or I need this DJI part, or I need this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, can you ship it to me X? And that really seems like, you travel all over, you have different gear requests and needs and things, and then I get a call, or we get an email, or my team gets hit up, and then it's like, can it be there on Tuesday? And I'm really glad that we've had this long working relationship where we've been able to maintain connection and can help you on all of these projects and these things that you do around the world. I know we talked about this, and I don't want to repeat myself from our previous interview.
I mean, but you can go back to 2014 in the archives and listen and see how our voices have aged.
That's right. We're all older, and I know I sound probably a bit hoarse because I was yelling out raffle numbers for an hour yesterday because it was our big party here. And Abe, I think it's really funny too that you happened to win a Black Magic.
Yeah, the whole time yesterday, I was standing around. It felt like everyone was winning around me, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun to win something. And I was literally standing at the Black Magic table, because those guys were awesome, by the way. They sent me a 12 during the pandemic. They sent me the 12K camera for a demo, and it couldn't have happened at a better time. Like, I tested that thing up and down. I had nothing but time. But yeah, I was standing by the Black Magic table, totally won on the raffle. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to seem like a total setup, because I felt like I'm practically sponsored by Black Magic. And but it's still very thrilled. It was thrilled.
What'd you win?
5-inch onboard monitor.
Yeah.
Dang. And but I will say, Illya, the thing is that this business I really savor and relish is the relationships. Because agree. You're right. I loaded for you, and it's nothing like being in a pressure cooker together. And at that time, when I was a prep tech, I left the floor to go load film for Ralph Boda ASC. And if that's your first film off the rental house floor, that you're like, back then there was no IMDb. They're like, hey kid, buddy up to that guy. He shot Saturday Night Fever. This is like in New York City. It's not like you can IMDb someone, and like, I literally just walked up to him and started talking to him, met his son Paul Boda. I met Paul Boda, Ralph Boda's son, in New York City as a prep tech. And then it came to the opportunity where my wife got promoted to Los Angeles. I called him up, and immediately within a few weeks of being in LA, I got on a movie with Eugene Levy and Lyndall Hamilton.
Oh wow, awesome!
And he was ASC, but it was non-union, and the show flipped.
Oh wow!
So
good for you.
So I got in the union. I filled the paperwork out, but after that, I was like, now what? He's done with his movie. I have to go find a movie, and that's where we met. Is in the indie movie world, where there was so low budget. They had a van.
That was like possibly one of the worst jobs I ever did. It's the only job I ever walked off.
It was so
of.
low budget. There was not a camera truck. They towed around a van with all our gear in it, and the van didn't even run.
Yeah.
But soon after that, I ended up loading film on Ali, Michael Mann with Chivo, and the rest was history. But either way, all through my journey, you've been there on my first movie that flipped to Lionsgate. You got me some my PL adapters, and you've always been there, even with the lenses. When I'm like sussing out a new movie, talking about lenses. So you have definitely been the couture advisor that tailored to my needs.
The Anna Wintour of cameras.
Well, I'm happy to do it, and I don't want you to feel not special now, but this is basically my job now. Monday through Friday. It's what I do. It's what I do for people like all day long. But let's dive into all the stuff that's happened since 2014. I mean, and of course, you've been working all through the pandemic here, but you've got a lot of really big credits and the streaming stuff that has now all come out. Anything in particular you really like to talk about? Is there somewhere you want to start in this timeline of journey from?
I can talk about where I'm at now. I just finished a new series, which is with the Cobra Kai creators. One of my directors, Sherwin Shalanti, called it, it's a love letter to 80s action movies.
Oh, cool.
Like, big bazookas, everything's over the top, fun. It's a comedy. It's like Hangover meets SEAL Team.
Oh, wow.
It's like going on a mission while you're just totally wasted. It's a new Netflix series.
Can you say what it's called?
It's called Obliterated.
Oh, okay.
And I just finished that, and this is where I'm at currently. Prior to that, I was on National Treasure. But this is the place I'm at currently, which is like VFX, action, lots of video walls, big sets, big thinking, set extensions.
Video walls like volume kind of stuff?
Yeah, but not the full experience. It's like car work, adding walls to the sets, the LED.
It's some of the most expensive type of work you can do right now if you're actually in one of these stages where they have millions of dollars worth of stuff in there, and it costs them millions of dollars to actually build it. Yeah, they charge huge day rates to get into a volume to shoot anything.
Yeah, and so I had to figure out the process, and I guess my starting place was like back in the day when we did Poor Man's Process. You remember you have you have some there with the light
yes, back in the day
through.
when we did that. Like, we don't do that now.
It's still very much a reality even on network TV, but I ended up just figuring out the angles that we needed for our car work. I kind of looked at some episodes, see what the editors like to cut, see how I like to shoot, and I kind of just mimicked what we did on regular hood mount, hostess tray, and those angles, those millimeters, I ended up just doing the math, figuring out the exact size video walls we needed. And my producer ended up calling it middle class process because it kind of tailored to your needs.
Yeah.
And so I would talk with the directors. And I
You
said,
should copyright that. You should make a website about that right now.
Yeah, middle class process.
So middle class process is just taken.
It's better than Poor Man's Process.
Yeah. Yeah, and everyone knows what you mean. The entire company as it was forming. So I ended up using these video walls by Pixel out of New Orleans. And that's how it started. That was my starting place of figuring out how to detune walls. And I was able to do a lot of experimenting. But it led me all the way until like my last show, just that I just wrapped. But over 100 feet of video wall I was doing. I was shooting plates for the video wall, shooting on rooftops in Vegas. I ended up having slinging work, getting plates shot in Morocco. Just and whenever we had a set, because you don't know, a lot of the scripts aren't fleshed out, and they're like, oh, maybe they did a combat mission in Morocco. How do we get a custom plate for our set? So with the production designer, so now I've evolved ways away from middle class process, and it's
upper middle class.
Yeah, upper middle class,
bougie, slightly bougie process,
first class. But I'm nowhere shooting 2D and a half plates. It's mostly used for set design to really transport the actors, because there's nothing like having the actor really feel the space, which really informs a sense of place. And same thing with National Treasure. I had some plates shot in Mexico as we were building our sets, and you just really design the set around to the size of the video wall. So it's gotten quite complicated, a lot of math, and it's gotten really, really time consuming with emails on top of the basic duties as a DP. But I've really grown a lot in the video wall space, and it's very much, I wouldn't say it's quite there yet. I think we're just getting started, and I'm even doing video walls on location, the day for nights. Well, I just will also transport an entire video wall to on location.
And so it's a nighttime video wall?
Yeah, you can put fly swatters above it, make some negative, and you can transport your sets on location and just having exterior video walls built. And so it's been quite a game changer for me recently, trying to make it economical and yet very, very creative.
Let me ask you, because this befuddles me. I watch a lot of shows that I know use this stuff. When we first saw The Mandalorian, it was like shocking that they were using Unreal Engine in these video wall, the volume technology and stuff like that. And that stuff looks good, and I think even holds up. But there's a lot of that kind of work that doesn't work. So what's the key to making it work?
Well, it's been fun watching, because now I'm a little more attuned to watching even Hitchcock and seeing like the evolution. Yeah, it's almost like it could be its own class in college, like car work and the evolution of car work.
It should be a class in school. Oh my God. You're going to spend so much of your life doing it. You should have one semester of it under your belt.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a growing process of trying to get truthfulness, trying to get realism. And the cool thing about it is the interactive lighting. But there's also so many different tricks that I do that I just came out of necessity how to have solutions. And I feel like no matter where you are in the camera department, it's all about solutions. Sometimes I put some Hampshire frost between the wall and the actor, and it's really having the consistent depth of field. So whether you're detuning the wall to make your background feel more natural, or maybe it's a certain diffusion filter that's just going to smooth out the edges, because you're having two sensors basically talking to one another. And how you bridge that gap in a natural way is, I think, whatever tricks that you come up with to survive a solution. I would say we're not there yet. I'm continuously testing, but also that technology is changing. I'm having different walls that I had in 2020. And to me, I also treat it as a light. I also flip it to green screen when I need it. When we're doing the helicopter work, I shoot a plate. I shoot practically with the helicopter coming into the shot, into the penthouse. And then I'll shoot a blue screen, green screen if I need to. And sometimes I make it all negative, and then I add a little portion that makes it feel like a 16 by 16 light panel.
It's pretty amazing to have a self-illuminated green screen. To, like, you remember, having to go back, I'm sure, to the era of doing this in film, where it was like, you had to make it really even. You had to make sure that it was, you didn't have harsh spill and reflections, and it's a real pain to properly light a green screen. And now you can flip a switch, and it's self-illuminating. It's gotta free you up a bit.
It does, and it does speed up the process. And now I do something even more interesting: is I shoot plates of the set, and if you have to go do an insert, you go to the video wall and you throw up the bar, and you add a little background. And you actually feel like you're in the bar. Nobody will ever notice. And so I will sometimes take a picture of my cell phone of the set or my Fuji camera.
Feed that to the wall?
Feed it to the wall and do an insert.
Oh my God, really?
Oh, it's insane. This is all based out of how do we go back, build a portion of the set, or just put it on the video wall and I can shoot an insert. So it's been very...
No, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I'll show you a picture later where you won't even tell. They just bring back the same background, and I also just try to bring back little pieces of the set to make it feel natural, but it's seamless on the cut, and it's only maybe this big on a huge video wall. I'm just using this much space according to the mill. So I shoot some plates before we move on.
We're inside the screening room, and Abe's pointing to a 10-foot screen. So a little piece of wall. And of course, what's amazing about all of this is that the video walls work because traditionally this is all like very out of focus stuff. Really what we're talking about is faking locations, whether they be interior, exterior, on video walls. And basically it's sort of a blurred background, but absolutely gives off the sense of place. And you can actually use them now for lighting simultaneously as a source of light for whatever your foreground subject is. It's really, I predict, I don't know when it'll be, but I predict that this technology is going to be coming to people's homes, or at least for like sort of like maybe more the YouTube crowd.
Zoom meetings.
Yeah, really. And it's might be from projector, it might be from LEDs. I've seen some people already sort of experimenting with their television sets at home, and it's really cool. It's cool stuff.
There's a YouTube channel I watch actually. That's this guy who does Premiere Pro tricks and tips, and he actually talks about it. He has a video projector giving the background, and the background it looks like somebody's house. It doesn't. He hasn't made it look like he's on a spaceship or anything. But
just wait.
But I mean, I feel like if I wasn't sharing an office with my wife, I would do that, and I would do messed up stuff. So
yeah, it's still very sophisticated. There's a lot of math involved because you are literally. I mean, we're building huge sets around these video walls, so the sight lines have to be precise, not to see offset. So there's little tricks you can do with the production designer. I spend a lot of time with production designer and art director designing.
Does you and the director have to like really figure out your coverage before you even go down this path, so that you're not, because like on the day, if the director's like, hey, I want to turn around 180 degrees, and you're like, there's no video wall there, bub, sorry.
It is interesting because as they're plotting it out, I will stand out there during the prep, talk through some of the angles so I'm prepared on the day, because sometimes you have to augment it, but it's really a ton of math, and if you don't have your math right, you're going to be very limited on the day, and I don't want to disappoint the director. But ultimately I try to relieve the director of having any worry, because then that's the first thing they look for when they show up, is to see like where it falls apart. But the cool thing is when they walk onto set, they're 40 stories high above Vegas, and they're looking to the horizon line deep in the background, and I'm able to shoot night plates, day plates, any type of plate that you want, and the actors absolutely love it. I love it for the natural lighting of it. So I think we're just barely scratching the surface in terms of storytelling, and these video walls are offering lots of opportunities for being creative.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
I definitely want to talk to you about Queen of the South, because you got to work with a really good friend of mine, Ed Sanchez. I went to college with Ed, and he was a producing director on that show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I was so lucky to work with Ed. I can't believe it's such a small world. Hearing you say that, I feel like we're alumni now, because Ed Sanchez is a unicorn out there who I just love his style of filmmaking. He truly is an artist, and his viewpoint is something I delight in terms of his background, because you're right. When he showed up, when I met him, I knew the movie he shot, but just meeting him and being part of his process was delightful to just be with him the full season long as producing director. But yeah, I love Ed, and teaming up with him in a cartel world, not necessarily a horror genre. The thing that was relatable is the blood, but the way you could tell, like, he does add his slant of storytelling that engages the audience to participate. And that's something, one of the biggest takeaways I had with Ed on shooting Queen of the South was that process, because our lead actress, or our lead character, was always on the run, is always cat and mouse, and you just never know who was around the corner ready to try to chop your head off.
I mean, because like when we last talked to you in 2014, so 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago, I feel like you were about to blow up. Like we could feel kind of the simmer. Was Queen of the South the thing, or like what was the thing that kind of like got you to the point where like you're shooting big stuff, you're doing a lot of TV? What was the thing that kind of got you into that world?
So I came back from Kenya, and I was already starting to shoot indie movies. I was saying no to assisting on movies like Born Identity as a camera assistant. And I was going to segue to camera operator, and I ended up getting season 1 of Queen of the South as a camera operator with the agreement that I would shoot second unit and double ups. And Cameron Duncan was the DP on that series, and that series, the DP shot every episode. So they changed their concept, I think maybe the episode 3, where you were going back and forth in terms of flashbacks. Like it was... Some part of the sequence was flashbacks, part of it was real time, and then they changed the concept, so I had to go back and do a lot of shooting. But then Cameron left early to go do Longmire, and I stayed on the show to shoot the season finale, and I think that's kind of where it started, that I ended up shooting the season finale of season 1, and the studio and everyone, the producers and everybody was happy with the result. It was very seamless. I think Cameron Duncan, the DP Cameron Duncan, and I come from the same place. In terms of the camera department, and so we had a shorthand, so it was an easy transition. And then Cameron didn't come back to season 2, and the studio was like, I think we're gonna support you to get you ready to shoot. And I had a lot of support from the showrunner. And in season 3, I became the lead DP and shot for the next 3 years of Queen of the South. And
so that was the thing that kind of broke that show kind of put you in that slot.
It was. I had a lot of support from Fox 21 and the studio and the executives to shoot. And a lot of it also too is I felt like shooting Queen of the South as a Latino person also gave me a way to kind of really, because my dad was a biker, and it's like I came from a neighborhood that actually had gangs, and I felt like a lot of that storyline I could relate to in terms of like being displaced. And I feel like a lot of the storytelling I'm doing lately is about being displaced. I think naturally as a camera person, DP, photographer, street photographer, I see storytelling as a person that is displaced. Like I think when I was in school, elementary, middle school, high school, like my favorite time was to go on a field trip. Like that was like the most exciting. We all jump on the bus and go to a location, go to the National History Museum, to the zoo. And I always felt like that was like my zone, was the field trips. And look at the film crew dynamic. This is what we do. We jump in a van, and where are we going today? We're going to shoot a spaceship. so Queen of the South had that. It took place in, we would have to fake New Orleans or Dallas for Colombia or Germany. And as I traveled so much, I used a lot of elements that I learned traveling, because I even worked on a documentary where I had to go deep down into Colombia where they're actually making cocaine. Mm-hmm. So as between shows, I would be in Colombia while I'm still in Queen of the South, and I'm taking pictures to a place deep in the bush, to the Mbera tribe, where you have to take a 8-hour 4x4 drive and a 6-hour boat ride to go deep to see these tribes and deep into Colombia. And I'm taking pictures as a reference, sending them to the production designer. This is the way it looks. This is how it feels real. And the boat that I was in, there was a priest. It's just like the movies. There's a priest on the boat. There's a guy with a white flag. It's basically saying like,
hey, don't shoot us.
Don't shoot us. Yeah. And so a lot of these experiences working, in these expeditions have really informed the shooting on network television, and how to talk to the production designer, how to make it feel real, make it feel like Colombia. make it feel like Mexico. Same thing. I was in Mexico shooting a documentary, and the van driver, transportation guy, was stabbed like a week prior, and I'm running around with a camera trying to document, but still on Queen of the South, and again taking pictures, sending to the production designer. And I felt like that was kind of what was a game changer for the show, is that I felt like I wanted to bring in more of my culture, more of my history, and it was really a diverse cast of Latino culture, and that was kind of the starting place where I have. But I think all the way through is the same thing with it being displaced. 61st Street, which is a courtroom drama of someone being in the wrong place at the wrong time and running from the cops, somebody who's on the run. And I feel like this is where almost all my storytelling has been, of the chase. And I love French Connection. I love Scarface.
You want to give a shout out to John Brawley? I know you guys are pals, and John Brawley also came in and did Queen of the South and stuff with you.
So John Brawley did season 2 of Queen of the South, and I had to inherit what John Brawley set up for Queen of the South, because John Brawley came in from Australia and he brought all his black magic cameras, and he really strengthened my workflow. And I give a lot of credit to John Brawley in terms of, I've always used multiple cameras. I think when I was an assistant on Spider-Man 3 with Bill Pope, we had VistaVision, 235, 435. We must have had like 8 cameras, but only 2 camera teams.
They had actual VistaVision on that? Sorry, I don't mean to be...
Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi. We had 2 VistaVision cameras full time. And,
wow.
And same thing, it's like you have to know with Bill, like even though it's like one page and a half a day, you had to be very precise of using the same gear you had on your Panavision cameras on the VistaVision and remote focus, and you had to make it work in a modern era with VistaVision. But yeah, I was lugging around that VistaVision camera for almost a year. Wow. Spider-Man 3 with Bill.
For our listeners who don't know, VistaVision is a 35mm format where the film actually runs sideways instead of vertically, and the gear is all huge. It's all really, really big, really heavy.
3-frame pull across instead of one. It's like 12 perf pull across instead of 4 perf pull down. I was a projectionist.
I'm pretty sure it's pretty close to the format that you might shoot at. That it's full frame. Full frame is very close to VistaVision. So
yeah, it's interesting to look back, because that was like a normal thing back then, but now that I look back, it does sound crazy. That was like the VistaVisions, we had 2 of them sitting on the truck, and it was just like a normal thing.
I just didn't know VistaVision was used even that recently. I'm sorry, I did not mean to turn this into the VistaVision podcast.
Even when I was already shooting indie movies and shooting promos for Showtime, I mean, when I was in transition, I had to step away from movies. Django Unchained called me, but they needed people who knew film even in 2012. And
that's Tarantino.
And I was already shooting, but if you get a call to come be Quentin Tarantino's assistant for his movie cam, and he's like, well, Quentin likes to operate every now and then. We just need someone to be ready for him on standby. And they had just got a new camera team. They called me in. And so basically anything that has a mountain, hill, or snow, I was there helping the team, Gregor, build the cameras and all their Bob's anamorphic lenses. But even up until then, I was like working with Movie Cam in 2012. That was my last film job ever, was on Django Unchained to assist Quentin's camera. But yeah, that's becoming...
It's a lost art.
It's a lost art, and even now they're trying to revamp and train people on film.
Yeah, I saw that. The union was going to do a loading workshop. And I was like, I mean, I know that they've done loading workshops for a long time, but at the same time, it was like, wow, they're doing it because I heard there's a real need of loaders. It's hard to find people who have the film skills these days. So.
But back to John Brawley. So his workflow process was having a handful of Blackmagic cameras, Ursa Mini, to complement the Alexa, and with LiDAR, we were able to really color match to the show spec. So now I still use multiple cameras as part of my workflow. So now I have usually up to 8 cameras on a show.
Whoa.
So this last...
but like how many are you rolling at the same time?
And how many camera teams do you have?
Well, I have 3 full time. I try to. Only on the big stunt sequences, I have maybe 5 to 6 cameras rolling. I don't roll 3 cameras all the time, but we had a big cast. But I had 3 full-time camera teams on Queen of the South, and also this last one, Obliterated. But Obliterated, I had 2 FX3s, 2 FX6s, which were hard to get. Oh my gosh. And 4 Venices.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about your obsession with color and your street photography, because I follow your Instagram. I see the stuff that you put up there.
Pretty amazing.
And You put like really saturated colors and all kinds of colorful stuff in there, and it's really fun for me. And it's sort of like the little check-ins. They come through my feed. It's like, oh, look what Abe posted. Oh, look what Abe posted. Look at this. And so tell me about color and sort of like I know it's like a hobby for you. You must love it. So
it's weird. It's street photography. Well, I've been shooting still since 8th grade, developing film. So I've always, even when I was a loader, I had my stills camera underneath. I'm like always thinking, oh, I'm gonna spool off some short ends and shoot. And up to a while I started shooting, but working with Michael Mann movies, I shot 1.6 million feet of film. There's no time to shoot any type of photography. But now as DP, the street photography really informs the reality of the day, because you can have the AD team set background. You can have them, what's behind the actor is so important. And I felt I spend so much time lighting actors, really focus on skin tone, which is, a shorthand, yes, but it's always changing depending on the sensor technology and diffusion and your color and your show and your genre. So street photography gives me a place where I don't have a grip. I don't have 200 people on the sidelines. I'm able to see random color combinations coming together. I'm able to explore timing of how people move, because if I see somebody wearing nothing but red, I see a yellow wall, I time it out. I don't shoot multiple frames at once. I take that perfect one moment with the classic street photography ethos. And the thing is, for me, it's not only that, it's also my camera. I shoot with Fuji.
I was going to ask if what camera you're
That looks
using.
like a Fuji around your neck right now.
Yes, Fuji.
Yeah, no, it's
so
great. I love the shot. And like you put your kids to work too for your street photography, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of like fishing. I'm not going to always get the most excellent picture. One of them maybe. There's been days I shoot and I don't get anything. But there's a sense of rush. I feel like I'm so lucky because I truly, since 8th grade, wanted to do this. And there's endorphins, like runner's high, that goes off even when I'm shooting on set. I know people want to wrap early, but it is so exciting to be shooting and lighting and that when I'm away from it, I still shoot street photography, and you get the big catch, the right color combination, the right movement, the right emotion, and you just never know. It's so unpredictable. It's the one thing I can't control. And you're right, I do push color, but what I do is I really try to push the color in certain areas of just to inform me how it reacts and responds with the sensor. And so for me, their color science, Fuji, I've had great meetings between me, LiDAR, and Fuji. Fuji's been very supportive of me tapping into some of their process. So when you buy their cameras, it's kind of like having 18 film stocks. But I will say there's something about the withdrawal of color. So at times when I shoot raw, black and white. I don't focus on color when I'm shooting. I'm focusing on shadow. And so when you shoot raw and black and white, you're looking at it, you're seeing the lines in the shadow, you're seeing the ratios. And then when I go home and put it into my color system, since it's raw, it goes back to color. So it's like almost developing your film.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah, it's like you get 2 in 1.
And so, but the cool thing about this is I do have a sense of control, because then I could pick which film stock I want Fuji to be. So when I'm framing and shooting, it's black and white on the sensor. So all I do is like think in black and white, and I let color come to me as a gift in certain film color science. So it helps me in the prep, not necessarily on the day shooting. So it's all in advance. When we're building sets, wardrobe, I'm able to show the costume designer, the art director, this is what happens to the red with the LUT. Because right now, they just show up with a certain color red, and then it gets colored, and it might be different. This here kind of roughs it in. We're like, this is what the red's going to look like with the LUT. And I come from a film background, and what Fujifilm did was they kept pushing and carrying over, bridging the gap to digital with their color science. It's still under lock and key. You can't get the codes to the color science. You have to get the camera, but you're able to fine tune what they have based off film, because there was no thing where you shoot with Kodak and that's the Kodak experience. It's like you had your colorists. And so I also involved my colorists from LiDAR into this process with Fuji. But it all came from my street photography of just having wonderful random colors just come into play, and it's really changed my process in the prep. But it's about enjoying the moment and without the camera. But the thing is, like, I'm just moving through time in my Instagram, collecting. It's kind of having a contact sheet for myself that references certain colors. So Instagram to me has been kind of an archive for me to reference certain moments in
interesting.
color. So it's kind of a loose, open gate contact sheet for me, but I just share it. Well, I think, in terms of a jump off point from street photography is that it's always trying to get that camera as small as possible. And I remember during the pandemic for 7 months, I didn't know it was going to be 7 months, but I remember what do I do? There's no emails.
You only had a pandemic for 7 months. Mine was 3 years.
It was what do we do? I was watching Extraction with the Sam Hargrave picture, and I was watching some of their handheld work. And the thing is, street photography is an obstacle course, going up and down curbs, trying not to be noticed, trying to be seamless, trying to be hidden, not having them know that you're taking a picture of them.
Not attract much attention. Yeah.
Yeah. But I watched Extraction, and the handheld work that Sam did just blew me away. I was not working out. I was watching the show of how he did handheld work. And on TV, I don't operate. And I just fell in love with his work. He was strapping himself to the hood of a car. He was being cabled, jumping off roofs, handheld. He built a very small camera, which we call the combat camera. And for me, or even Brawley, he has a different name for it, like F camera, football camera. It's something you hold close. And this is what this is with street photography. It's something close, immediate, reactionary, and it helps you be nimble. And I saw his work, but I understood that I had to have physical conditioning for it. And Sam comes from a stunt background, and he was operating the camera. And I just took a ton of pictures of behind the scenes of how he built the camera and how he moved and engineered and designed shots. So from then on, I ended up creating a workout. During the pandemic, I looked over and I saw these water jugs hanging there, and they had a handle, like a top handle on the water jug. And I'm just like, you know what? I got so inspired to work out. So I took the water jug with the handle, and it was like this mode. It was like a full-blown combat camera with the water. And I went ballistic. I got so into it. I put cones. I was doing figure eights, and I ended up studying boxing, tennis shuffles, wide receiver shuffles, and I incorporated making myself a workout. I lost 20 pounds during that 7 months. Obsessed with Sam Hargrave, his handheld work. I was doing figure eights backwards, because when you're operating, you're constantly walking backwards in some shots, but that's not a natural thing. So what I did was to create a habitual body physical recollection of walking backwards, holding this huge 30-pound water, 20-pound jug of walking, and it conditioned my body completely. It was the most fit I've ever been in my life during this pandemic, and everyone's like, oh, you're doing the prison workout, or you're doing and it was in the basement in the French Quarter at some parking garage, 103 degrees, horrible, but I've never felt more alive and better. And it triggered me to study how to breathe. When you're holding a 150, you feel your breathing. So I studied about sniper breathing. I studied Martha Graham dancer breathing techniques. So this extraction, contraction, because when you go down and do a low shot, you want to exhale. And when you stand up, your ribs open up, so you want to inhale. So I did all these workouts, jumping rope, because when we do TV, it's very rigorous, and you want to be in physical condition. So when I went back to Queen of the South, I noticed that me sitting even at the dit card or whatever, I felt just better. I felt like I was breathing better, moving better. And so this is a total camera miracle. I come to find out, 4th episode in, Sam Hargrave is coming to the set as an actor, and he's doing a stunt sequence. And I told him this big 7-month, I was like, you inspired me to work out. You inspired me to build a better combat camera. Blackmagic gave me a 12K demo. Oh, yeah. I built it into a combat mode, and I was running around with my pocket camera. Eventually, I got a medicine ball. I was like, it went full stream. So Sam comes in, he goes like, well, what this means, right? And I go, what does it mean? He's like, you're going to shoot the stunt sequence. You're going to operate. That's right. And so I did the stunt sequence. I operated 80% of it to see my footwork, because it's about footwork. The stunt sequence, you maybe shoot a little longer to be away because you don't know how fast they come towards you. But the whole engineering of this workout was to have your reaction time, just like sports. You want to be able to react in real time, your footwork and short movements with the weight that you're carrying. And it was seamless. It was like I had my Blackmagic camera. I took everything on it, put it on my chest, and I had the ability to be quick. And I shot Sam doing the locker room fight. And it was like this total random thing. For 7 months, I was obsessed of his handheld work. And I got to team up with Sam Hargrave. And it was just like the universe saying, like, that hard work paid off. and end up doing this beautiful Queen of the South locker room sequence.
That's really fun. Of course, that movie Extraction, Tom Siegel, it's a friend of the show. And also Michael Fitzmaurice, friend of the show, is the aerial DP on that and stuff. It's an incredible look, and the Russo brothers, they do really, really visual movies, and I think that's awesome that it was inspiration for you to go down this path and to do all these things.
I'm waiting to do a movie where I'm going to incorporate tons of choreography, some handheld, now with the cameras with bigger Ks and stabilization and Ronin. So I'm just waiting for my time to do the type of choreography which will be a jump point for my street photography and lighting and everything that comes together. So I just can't wait for a future project where I can actually implement some of this.
I think that's an awesome place to leave it. I mean,
I agree.
Abe, where can people find you if they want to track you down?
First, your Instagram.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure your Instagram.
Instagram, it's abe.martinez.dp. And that's pretty much it, Instagram.
All right, well, we'll have a link for it in the show notes over at Cam Noir. Abe, so much fun. Thanks so much for doing this again. I'm really glad we got to catch up.
Let's not let it go 8 more years.
Yeah,
no,
please.
a lot sooner, hopefully again.
We've had some people on here, like Checo Varese, we've had on
four times?
4 times, yeah.
Yeah.
We should be having you on more often.
But often Abe is elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
But it's great that we could catch up in
Zoom
person.
Zoom exists,
and we can do that.
Well,
So
I'm glad we waited long enough we could do it in person.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
It was fun.
awesome.
All right, so that was Abe Martinez. Abe, that was so much fun. I can't wait to do this again. And
Let's
hopefully,
not let it be another. Go for the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's not let it go be another 8 years before we do it again.
And now, short ends.
So, Ben, it is our favorite time of the show. It's our time to talk about our obsession of the week. Short ends. What is your obsession this week? What are you into?
Well, mine's a huge bummer. So,
oh no!
Put on.
Great. Do you want me to go first then, since mine is not a bummer and it's technology? I could do that.
No, I'll go ahead.
You want to
and
leave our listeners, on the downer, or you want to give them the downer now?
Well, the downer is famed composer Angelo Badalamenti, who passed away this week, and I believe he was 80.
You're gonna have to help me on this one. I don't know if I know the name Angelo Badalamenti.
Angelo Badalamenti, probably best known for scoring basically all of David Lynch's best films or best known films. So he did Twin Peaks, that haunting score for Twin Peaks. That's him.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that's stuck in my head forever.
he did the score for Blue Velvet. He did he did a bunch of David Lynch scores. Lost Highway. Also, he did stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. Which
I know you remember that. So.
Okay.
If you're gonna pick one,
I'm a big horror aficionado, and I recently revisited Nightmare on Elm Street 3. That movie's brilliant, and by the way, it was co-written by Frank Darabont.
Oh wow!
It's
really
yeah. Then unknown Frank Darabont and Chuck Russell.
Totally unknown. Yeah, that was decades before Shawshank.
He also did like Christmas Vacation. He did just tons and tons and tons of amazing work. Anyway, I won't go on and on about it, but Angelo Badalamenti, I believe, in his own way, changed the landscape of how we look at scores or how we hear scores. He approached it in a very different way. He used electronic music kind of early, but he was just friggin' amazing. He composed the score, I believe, for all 18 episodes of David Lynch's third season of Twin Peaks that was just a couple years ago. Anyway, it's a big loss. But I'd say let's take it for a moment and just remember him and appreciate his work. He was 85.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm sorry I didn't know his name, but I certainly know his work, and his work is it speaks for itself, and he will be missed.
I sometimes talk about we'll have a DP on here, and I'll mention that I would go see a movie just because they shot it. There are a couple movies I saw just because he did the score, because I love his composing work.
Nice.
So, Illya, what is your short end this week?
Well, I had a interesting visit from someone who was working with a company called Laowa. Laowa, who, Hot Rod Cameras sells their products. They make really good lenses. They have an interesting history. The company has only been around a few years, but in that time, they've already come out with some really fine, fun lenses, including just now starting to ship are these lenses called the Nanomorphics, the Nanomorphs. The Nanomorphs are these tiny little anamorphic lenses. They're 1.5 2.5 times squeeze. They're really affordable, like $1,300. They're really good, high quality lenses. But I had someone came by and was like, hey, Illya, you need to check out this. And it's a beta prototype lens, which just debuted at Interbi in Japan from Laowa. And it's called the Proteus. It was a 45 millimeter, 2 times anamorphic lens. And he said, hey, let's put it on your projector and take a real close look at it. And we did that. And for those of you who don't know, a lens projector actually gives you an objective way to evaluate lenses. Essentially, there's a test pattern called a reticle that a bright light is shown through, and that's projected through the lens onto your wall or onto a screen, which is what we did. And it gives you a real point of reference. You can compare it to really expensive lenses, really inexpensive lenses, everything in between. And we had some of that. We had the other anamorphic lenses. And when I put this one up, I was blown away at the quality, and it seemed to have sort of the vertical focusing, which is a very desirable effect that, Panavision lenses are famous for. And it had really, really good sharpness. And it's based around the idea of a Super 35, which is about 99% of all media has been shot in the professional cinema and a lot for television in this format. And I don't know what it's going to cost, but if it's made by Laowa, and Laowa is known to really push the envelope for high quality and affordable, I am predicting that this will be a very affordable, like an individual could afford a very, high-end premier sort of Super 35 2 times squeeze anamorphics, which will cover Super 35 sensors, and they're fast. They're at T2, and they definitely clean up a lot by 2.8. I think that if they hit a good price point, then these lenses are really going to clean up. People are gonna have a huge response to this, and I think you're going to see a lot more Laowa sort of like higher end anamorphic lenses owned by all levels of people out there, just because the price is so affordable, but also the quality is really, it's not like anything I've seen so far.
Wow, that's exciting. I'd like to check those out.
Yeah, and I expect it'll come back at some point. I don't know when, and I don't know what other focal lengths will be. It really was kind of a surprise thing in November at Interbi in Japan, which is sort of like their NAB, and there were some people who gave it some feedback. It was a prototype lens, but looking at it on a projector tells you a lot. I mean, it doesn't tell you everything, but it tells you an awful lot about the quality. And if it only goes up from here, it's a big deal.
Excellent. Well, I think that wraps us up this week. Thanks again to Abe Martinez for being our returning champion from way back. I feel like we need to go touch back base with Chris Coman and Jason Wingrove and Fraser Bradshaw. We got too many Frasers in the world. It screws me up. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that'd be wonderful. We should definitely go and reconnect with the people who helped start us off. That'll be wonderful. I guess maybe that means we have to bring back Bill Totolo as well.
Oh, well, I can't stand that guy.
I know that you worked with them. You worked with them just recently, so I know that.
I worked with him on back-to-back projects, and he's just an amazing. He's an amazing guy. Very funny, very clever, very smart, awesome shooter. So good. His work is friggin' brilliant. I love working with Bill. Anyway,
yeah. All right, so Ben, where can people find you?
Please go to audible.com and listen to Catchers, and reach out to me if you don't want to pay for it. I can probably hook you up with a code. But if you have Audible, it's free. If you are interested in Audible, you can get a free 30-day trial. Listen to my thing, listen to some other stuff, then cancel it. Don't care. And other than that, please go to benrock.com, where you will find a link to Catchers. And you can connect with me on Twitter, as long as I'm still on Twitter.
Still there?
My tweeting hasn't really changed that much. I will say this for Twitter. Suddenly, I'm getting a lot of weird spammy offers and a lot of like political extremists with 10 followers, who in no way are a bot or a troll farm somewhere, are suddenly commenting on stuff that I'm doing and like trying to get me to argue with them. I mean, seriously, there's been a sea change almost overnight. I couldn't tell you why that might be, but anyway, I'm still at Neptune Salad on Twitter, mostly talking about film stuff, and anything else you can find over at benrock.com. You can find me on Mastodon as well, which is like sort of my escape hatch out of Twitter. How about yourself, Illya? Where can people find you?
You can find me at Hot Rod Cameras. HotRodCameras.com is the website, which is currently undergoing a huge facelift, and I've been spending a lot of my days on the new site. The new site's not up yet, but I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that in 60 days, we will have a new site, and it'll be very exciting, including a new blog and podcast links and all kinds of fun stuff. I'm working on a feature right now so you can be on the site and listen to the podcast. I hope it happens. It'll be great.
Oh, I thought you meant you were working on a feature like you were working on a movie.
No. No, I'm working on the feature of being able to listen to our podcast, hearing your voice and mine while shopping at Hot Rod Cameras, like a little player that could play the latest episode while you're browsing around and looking at stuff. So, I mean, for whatever that's worth.
Nothing sells more cameras than hearing the sound of my voice. So you're welcome.
Every once in a while, someone does, listen to the podcast and does come in and does buy stuff and tells us. And you know what? Usually they get a piece of swag with that. They get a free T-shirt or hat or something. In fact, they don't even have to buy something. Yeah,
I used to encourage them to angrily ask you for their T-shirt that they are entitled to have.
I have to make new T-shirts though. We had a party, and the party last week was brilliant. It was so good. It was a really awesome party. It was our customer appreciation shindig. We gave away like tens of thousands of dollars in swag. Or not swag, but actual gear, and a ton of people left with our shirts.
Some of it went to Abe Martinez.
Abe Martinez won, which was awesome. So and we even mentioned that in our interview, which is so random and wonderful. There was a few people who won who I knew, which was just awesome. But we try to keep that party in a way so that not too many people show up. So you have a really good chance of winning. When you give away 10 prizes and there's 170, 180 people there, your chances are actually really pretty good about winning something. It's not too bad. Yeah. Anyway, so Ben, let's thank some people. Who should we thank this week?
We should thank Alana Cody, who is getting us out there. Had me at a screening of a movie. I'll give you a hint what the movie was. It is 3 hours and 9 minutes long. I'll say no more. I did not know it was that long going in.
Shortcuts.
Very great movie. But man, I did not know that I was going to be there for 3 hours and 9 minutes. But let's thank her. She's got a ton of kick-ass interviews coming up. One of my bucket list cinematographers, maybe one of them. Don't want to ruin it by mentioning them by name. We should also thank Ben Katz, who tirelessly struggles to make us not sound like idiots. Is generally successful. Anything that makes us sound kind of smart is definitely Ben. And lastly, we should also thank Kay Zalatrakshy, who scored every piece of music that you've heard on this podcast. Check him out at musicbykays.com. Send him a message of some kind, just one of you. All you have to do is go there. There's like a message thing. Send him a message. Tell him you heard his music on the podcast. It costs you nothing. It'll make his day. And then hire him if you can. But you don't have to. Anyway, that's about it.
Thanks for listening.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.